Good afternoon, I'm Rita Francese. I'm going to present the paper supporting depression screening with multimodal emotion detection. My co-author is Pasquale Attanasio from IBM in Italy. Depression affects more than 2,064 million people, and the number is globally increasing. In the United States, the disease is estimated to cause 200 million lost workdays each year. In Italy, depression is the most common mental disorder, and over 2.8 million people suffered from it, and causes several symptoms that affect how a person feels, thinks, and handles with daily activity, such as living, eating, or working. At worst, depression can lead to suicide. Several self-assessment measures are adopted to evaluate depression. Among them, the Beck Depression Inventory (BDI) questionnaire has been considered in more than 7,000 studies. BDI is a self-report rating inventory that measures characteristic attitudes and symptoms of depression. It has been proposed in 1961 and revised 2 times until in 1966, where BDI-II, the adopted questionnaire, translated in 17 languages and adopted in Europe, Asia, and South America. It is composed of 21 items that are scored from 0, none to 3i. In the literature, emotions are generally interpreted by 2 different approaches, discrete and dimensional. The discrete approach states that humans feel some basic emotions such as anger, fear, sadness, and happiness. And on the contrary, the dimensional approach proposed by Russell represents emotions in a bidimensional space defined by valence and arousal, ranging from pleasure versus displeasure and high versus low activation. Xu et al. Reconsidered the 2 approaches in case of depression. The results revealed that depression can be connected to a well-known general theory, and the score, the region associated to low arousal and low valence characteristics of depression may be associated to sadness. The goal of LieToMe is to support the clinician in the interpretation of nonverbal signals of the patients collected while filling in the Beck II questionnaire. LieToMe is a mobile app for the clinician's device that lets the patient fill in the questionnaire while collecting the patient picture and audio once filled in a consensus form. This is the process. The user fill in the questionnaire and answer to open questions. So the images, the pictures are taken and are analyzed by a convolutional neural network, which identify the emotion. Similarly, the sound is recorded and transformed in a spectrogram and analyzed by a convolutional neural network, which classify the speech emotion. Then all the 3 scores of the BDI-II questionnaire, the image recognition, emotion recognition, and speech emotion recognition, are analyzed, and the correlation result is provided to the clinician. In this figure, we see the interface proposing a question on the left, the screenshot of the interface for starting the recording of the explanation provided by the patient, and the interface signaling that the recording is going on. The data set we selected for the image-based emotion recognition was the FAIR 2014 dataset composed of more than 28,000 images, and the approach for detecting emotion was discrete. So we consider the sad and not sad emotion, a subset of the image on this dataset. And to classify the emotion, we selected a convolutional neural network model composed by 3 convolutional blocks and 2 fully connected blocks, the last performing the classification. The classifier reached an accuracy average of 79.7%. Concerning the speech recognition, we have our dataset was the demos dataset consisting of 9,000 samples produced by 78 native speakers. Also in this case we classify the image in said and not the speech in said and not said, and also in this case we adopted a convolutional neural network for emotion detection. The performance of our classifier for image classification 79.7%, for speech classification 71.8%. The correlational analysis investigates the relationship among the scores of the BDI-II questionnaire and the score and image of the initial image and speech recognition classification. Because we cannot make any assumption on the data distribution of the samples, we adopted the Spearman correlation coefficient. In particular, we provide the results in 3 modalities. We provide a correlation matrix, a scatter plot depicting the relationship between the 3 variables, and the correlograms, a graphical way to highlight the most correlated variables in a dataset. In particular, we performed a user study with the aim to answer the following RQ. LieToMe may be adopted in the clinical use. To answer this question, we have to investigate the clinician satisfaction with patient user experience. We limit this report to the clinician point of view for time reasons. This study was a prospective acceptability study designed to assess the clinician acceptability of LieToMe. We have our participants were 4 psychiatrics and 4 psychology of the Campania region. Also 21 patients voluntarily participated after giving consent, informed consent. We propose a single question to assess the net promoter score, that is, on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend LieToMe to a colleague? NPS is computing by subtracting the percentage of customers who answered with a 6 or lower, known as detractor, from the percentage of customers we answer with a 9 to 10 score, known as promoter. So in this case we have 5 promoters and 1 detractors, so the NPS score is 50%, which is a very high score compared to the score of relevant software products adopted in the world. The clinician point of view on the acceptability for clinical use of LieToMe has been collected through the acceptability questionnaire. at the end of the experimentation period. In particular, we ask if LieToMe was easy to use, if it is helpful for the emotional analysis feature, if the amount of time is acceptable, if the correlation representation are easy to understand, and if the correlation results are satisfying, and if the clinician would like to use the application for routine practice, and at the end the overall satisfaction. We have also an open question. So the results are generally good, in particular for Q4, all the clinicians understand the representation adopted. In conclusion, we presented an approach named LieToMe based on deep learning for determining the relationship between the emotion detected by both passive speech and picture with respect to the result of the Beck Depression Inventory questionnaire that indicates the depression severity level. Deep learning technique based on convolutional neural network have been adopted for audio, image, emotion recognition, while correlation analysis assessed the relationship between the patient emotional state and the BDI-II depression level. Our preliminary evaluation seems to support the acceptability of LieToMe in the clinical practice. Indeed, the clinician had a good impression of the tool. In particular, on 8 interviewed clinicians, 5 would recommend the tool to their colleague. From the open questions, resulted that critical issues is the treatment of the patient data. So this aspect should be analyzed deeply. The accuracy of the model has been calculated on the dataset, but not tested in the wild. This should also be done with the due attention to privacy issues concerning image. The number of clinician patients who participated was limited, so we are not performing a wider experimentation of LieToMe, and we also plan to improve the model accuracy by experimenting the use of other machine learning approaches, and also to use psychological data for detecting emotions such as the heart rate, body temperature, blood pressure, and respiratory rate. As the clinician suggested, the LieToMe may be very useful also for collecting clinical data on depression.